Oddfellows.
Yeah. So the weight obviously comes off of Cava, but it obviously goes to, all right, well, now the pressure's on to make Oddfellows, like, all right, let's really focus on it. So, at the beginning it was, tons of energy. It was like, all right, we're making this happen. And, I think we've ironed out a lot of stuff here, really efficient now. Our services are very clean and very organized. When we first opened, I just remember describing the situation as like this gritty knife fight. Like, we're getting through service and it's just, oh my God, we're battling to get through service. And every night was just, it was pure chaos, and part of that is, maybe my lack of experience, as a front of the house manager, or just even managing, an American style casual restaurant, for food. But it was just craziness in here. And it just felt like such a struggle. So now, since 2023, we've been able to refine a lot of that and work out, some of those managerial details. I got people, kind of following in line with, the system that, we're creating here a little bit more. Again, the service staff has more experience. My cook, Ryan, he's been here for 4 years. He's on board, as the other cooks that have been here for longer, they're getting more experience. They're on board. So it's taken time. And I knew that it wasn't going to happen overnight in the very beginning, and I remember saying that to the opening crew. I'm like, this isn't going to happen. Like, we're not going to be the most well-oiled machine in one day.
Yeah.
It's going to take time for us to find the way this restaurant wants to operate and the way it's going to make the most sense. And it has taken some time to really get it to that efficient point.
This episode made possible by Restaurant Systems Pro. With excitement, allow me to introduce to you today's guest back on the show for a second time. Chef owner of Oddfellows Tavern in Berwick, Maine, Chef Gregg Sessler. My man Gregg, are you feeling unstoppable today?
Always unstoppable, yes.
Dude.
Cup is always half full. There's no question over here.
This is a special interview for me, and I think I want to take this time to recognize you early on, that I wouldn't be where I am today without people like you letting this random person come to them and say, hey, I have a podcast. Will you be a guest on my podcast? This is back in like 2012, 2013, when people don't know what a podcast is. You were one of my earliest guests, episode 6.
It's crazy. I had no idea really what we were even doing back then. You came to me with this idea, and it was like, oh, yeah, sure, we'll sit down, we'll talk. It sounds great. And it's funny, we found it on the internet the other day. One of the guys that works for me here, we started listening to it, and it was, man, some of the stuff that you're doing now, it's come so long.
Yeah,
far.
How far are you guys laughing? How hard were you laughing at me?
It was more me. I'm sitting there, I sounded so young. Probably still sound, who knows? But we'll see. It was really impressive, though, to hear some of your more recent interviews, like the one with Chef Hennessy the other day. Phenomenal. I mean, it just comes so far. I'm so happy for you, Eric.
Thank you
really
so
great
much.
stuff.
I wouldn't be here without people like you taking a chance on me and supporting me early on. So I'm going to treat you like a brand new guest. The show has come so far since those early episodes. It's a whole new format. So we're just going to treat you like I've never spoken to you before.
Okay.
So, I mean, if you guys want to go hurt your ears and listen to episode 6 of Restaurant Unstoppable, feel free to do that. But we're going to start from the beginning. Before we kind of dive into it real quick, chef owner, Oddfellows Tavern, South Berwick, Maine. Give me an idea of what this business is, just like a snapshot.
Sure. So wood-fired pizza. We are a local community tavern and restaurant. South Berwick's a small town, and we're all about just our regulars, our locals, our local community.
Yep. And you have about 80 seats?
It's about 80 seats. It opens up a little bit in the summertime. We have a nice little outdoor patio. It all depends on how we kind of arrange the furniture in here, but we're definitely, we're all about quality. The quantity, yeah, we can fill this place up, and it does fill up almost every night that we're open.
Took over turnkey operation 2020.
That's
been
correct.
4 years. Can't wait to talk about that.
Yeah.
Give me an idea of the gross. How are you guys doing?
We're doing well. We're just under $1 million.
Awesome.
It's been better than I ever thought it was going to be. I mean, we took this on as a second restaurant back in 2020. It was going to be, a kind of a side project. It's turned into, basically a full-time, situation here. So it's growing. It's continuing to grow. It's really just amazing how much traffic goes through here. I never thought such a small town would produce, so much business.
What are your goals in terms of revenue here?
Like to continue growing it. I think again, it's don't like to see it kind of plateau out.
Right.
I'd like to continue to push. I mean, there's more that we can do. I think, there's so many challenges.
It's a beautiful space, man.
Oh,
I
thank
love
you.
This is, if I lived in this town, this is where I would come to hang out.
Yeah.
For sure.
And that's what we get from so many of our locals, our regulars, people from all over. And we're kind of in the center of so many little towns. We've got Rollingsford, we've got Dover, we've got, Elliott, Somersworth,
yeah.
We've got, Wells, we've got North Berwick, all right here. I mean, there's literally 40,000 cars that drive by the front door of this restaurant every single day.
Yeah.
Incredible amounts of traffic to, partially our demise, but partially our success. There's so much traffic. And you can ask anybody in South Berwick how they feel about it, and you're going to get a very, very strong response about traffic in town here. But anyways, it creates a dynamic, and it creates a really, really kind of unique thing. So
I can't wait to get into it, man. Before we kind of dive back into your story and find out how you got to where you are today, let's get that motivational, inspirational, ball rolling with a success quote or mantra. What do you got for us?
So, one of the things I always go back to, it's a Stephen Hawking quote, intelligence is the ability to adapt to change. And I don't know, motivational, whatnot, this always kind of stuck with me, and it's something that I put over the kitchen at Cava, and the way Hawkins writes it out is really, really, fantastic. You can Google it out there, and there's different ways to interpret it. But, it's one of those things where if you can read, the way he writes it out, it always stuck with me.
And you think about like adapting is learning, right?
Absolutely.
And we're in a world that's changing so fast, and you have to constantly be learning. You have to constantly be carving out those neural pathways.
Yeah. and in this business, in particular, I think, on a day-to-day, I mean, if you're so stuck in your ways that you can't adapt to changes, if you can't, take the curveball and if you're just not even swinging at it, it's just, man, you've really got to be able to take, each day, look at it. Can we learn from this experience? Can we adapt to what's going on? How can we be better? I think COVID was a huge example of that. This restaurant is a huge example of like really trying to adapt to change, and trying to make things work around what it is that we're doing, organically. So it all kind of pans out.
Yeah, man. This has been so like I'm like chomping at the bit because like It's been 10 years. Like I said, I know there's been a lot, so I want to get into it. So where does it make sense to start telling your story? I mean, you opened as a Cava back.
Yes.
That was 15 years ago.
So Cava opened in the fall of 2008. We were in that recession back then. It was a wild time. Portsmouth didn't see a lot of that. The rest of the country obviously was getting hit hard with the recession of 2008. My wife and I had come from San Francisco. To open the restaurant.
So you're from San Francisco?
Well, I'm from Exeter originally.
Oh, you are?
But I
didn't know you were from Exeter.
From Exeter. Yeah, I graduated from Exeter High in '97.
Okay.
I had been living in San Francisco for about 5 years with my wife, and we moved back east to open up Cava in 2008. And
when did you know you wanted to open a restaurant?
Well, it was something I'd been talking about at the time in 2008, 2007. Been talking with my business partner from Cava, John, for quite a while. It was something we had both expressed interest in. And ultimately, my wife had gotten pregnant. We were looking for jobs and opportunities around the country, and we had come across a little restaurant space that was listed on Craigslist, and it's just out of a whim, emailed the landlord, and we started talking. Had a great conversation. Next thing I know, I'm on a plane and, writing a business plan on an airplane and, trying to make everything work from California.
So you were working in restaurants out in California?
Yes, that's correct. So I was the general manager, chef, and wine buyer of a little restaurant called Caprice, just north of San Francisco in Tiburon.
Okay. When did you get involved heavily? Like when was this your path?
1996.
So before you even graduated high school.
Yeah. So I started out, 1994, I started working at the Ocean Point Inn in East Boothbay, Maine.
Okay.
And that was my first.
Were you doing summers up there?
Yeah, summers up there.
Okay.
Exactly. Yep. In high school. And then, it was basically, hospitality and kitchen work and, working at the front desk of that inn and doing all sorts of, just jobs, throughout the year in high school, washing dishes, whatnot, prep cooking.
So when you graduate high school, are you saying to myself, I want to do this for the rest of my life?
Yeah. So I went straight to culinary school. Went to Paul Smith's College, graduated culinary degree in 99 from Paul Smith's, upstate New York. And ultimately went back to the Beach House restaurant, which was in Hampton. Became their sous chef and did that for a few years and bounced around to a couple of different places. Worked with, a couple of different great chefs, one of which is still best friend today. And ultimately found myself, traveling around the country. Key West, lived in New Orleans, out to San Francisco.
Nice. That's the cool thing about this industry. Then what? Yep. Sorry to cut you short.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, the opportunity to travel, the opportunity to go, places. I obviously in my early 20s, I had ambitions of, being a ski bum and, living in Colorado and cooking and
you can do that.
Yeah, you can do that.
This career, if you're good at it, is a ticket to anywhere you want to go, and you can see the world. It's really powerful. So, if I were to ask you back in just after graduating high school or when you're in culinary school, you seemed like you knew you wanted to do this. What was your passion? What was the thing that sparked inside of you, the thing that you loved about the work you were doing? Yeah,
I think it's the creativity, it's the service, it's the satisfaction of seeing people enjoy, the outputs of things that you do with your hands.
Do you remember the moment when you said this is what I want to do?
Oh, that goes all the way back to, I think my mother still has it somewhere. There was a piece of paper in second grade, they're asked, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? And she still has it written down. I wanted to be a chef. I didn't have any idea of what that meant back then, obviously, but that's what I said I wanted to do. And I kind of, just always really felt strongly that this was, what my path was going to be. So I don't know. I don't know if there was ever an aha moment where I was like, yeah, this is what I'm going to do.
Just felt right.
It just always kind of felt right.
So if I asked you that same question today, why do you do what you do? Would you say it has shifted or evolved?
That's a great question. There are days now where it's like, all right, what am I doing with myself? And then there are days where I'm like, man, I love what I'm doing. There are tough days. There are definitely days where, I'm questioning, career choice. Why am I in the restaurant business? Why am I cooking? There's a million other things I could be doing. I still love it. I still get a lot of satisfaction out of seeing, happy guests and people satisfied and being able to create and produce things with my hands, is definitely where, I think, my passion lies. Seeing people celebrate, joys and successes, whether it's an anniversary, a birthday, they're coming in with friends, being able to offer that, to the community, to people is really, my deep passion of why I'm in this service business. I love seeing people happy.
Yeah.
With being able to have a space to offer, it just, it is something that completes me.
And off air when we're talking, I think the other variable, you like to see communities happy.
Yep.
And a big part of what you're trying to do here with Oddfellows is to give back and to serve the community. I think that's the stuff. That's the magic right there. So I think that will kind of come further out of your story as we march along. So during this period from 97 to 2008, this 10-year period of you kind of just, sharpening your teeth in the industry, refining your skills and your knowledge, was there a place that you think you grew the most as a professional?
Yes, absolutely. So Marché à Fleur, a little French restaurant outside of San Francisco, was definitely kind of, I guess if there was an aha moment, it was there.
How many years were you there?
So I was there for about 2 years.
Okay.
It was a situation where we were living in Marin County, just north of San Francisco, extremely expensive, crazy to beautiful place. One of the nicest places I've ever lived. But it required, just endless work to try to make it. So, I was working as a cook at Marché. We would go to the farmer's market twice a week. We're building the menu off the ingredients, seasonal, fresh, right from the farms. It was just a tremendous experience. I learned so much how to care for produce, how to care for ingredients, how to build these seasonal menus and put that kind of, organic seasonal touch to it, fascinating, and just really opened my eyes to all sorts of things. At the same time, I was also waiting tables at a place called the Mountain Home Inn, which is up on top of Mount Tamalpais, Mount Tam. And
it's rare you can find somebody that can do both.
Yeah.
Back of house and in front of house.
Yeah. So I've always tried to know and to do both sides of it. I've waited tables, I've bartended, I've, front of the house managed, done the wine thing. So I've tried to get the whole scope of everything. Of course, I'm still cooking, but I'm also waiting tables in the mornings and through lunch, and then I'd run to the restaurant and cook at night.
Those are long days.
Long days, yeah, for sure. Start at 6 in the morning, and then you're not in until 11 o'clock at night.
And you're there with your now wife.
No, this is an ex at this point. My wife hasn't come into the picture quite yet, but
we won't talk about her.
Yeah, that's fine. and so anyways, the Mountain Home Inn got wind of what I was doing. They and the chef there said, hey, I've got an opportunity for you. I'm going to be leaving. Like, I'd like you to take my spot as the head chef in the kitchen. So ultimately, the Mountain Home Inn offered me the executive chef position there. And that's where really kind of it started. From there, I spent a year as the head chef there. I'd left Marché, and then the job at the Caprice, they recruited me to go down to the Caprice and run that kitchen.
So when did you leave the Mountain Inn?
Mountain Home Inn? That must have been 2005, I would say. So early 2005. So 2005 to 2008, I was at the Caprice.
So basically from like 2003 to 2008, you're like really refining your chops as an executive chef.
Absolutely.
What about the economics of restaurants? What about learning how to make restaurants profitable?
Yeah.
Were you more focused on the creativity, ingredients, making good food side of things, or were you thinking about how do we make money doing this?
Yeah. So out in California, I was definitely more involved and focused on, let's make everything, I was focused on the ingredients, not necessarily the cost side of it. The owners, I was working for somebody else at that point, working at the Caprice. The owner was very disconnected from the business. They pretty much gave us free reign to do whatever we wanted. There was no, accountability.
Was there a big budget?
Oh, it was just, it didn't matter, and so, at the end of the day, that was, it was great because we got to play with whatever we wanted to do. We could write whatever menu we wanted to write, and none of it really, ever mattered. But, and I think it was to the detriment of that restaurant, and, it was a bad, the owner, that's what the owner wanted. She said, go make this as incredible as you can make it. And that was what they told us to do. So that's what we did. By the time I started Cava, though, that mentality shifted. This was my restaurant. I needed to, make sure that these costs were in line. And that's, the schooling and I knew I could do that. I had the training to do that and keep the costs in line. So, Cava was a balance between, the food and then also the bottom line. Yeah. So
go ahead.
I was just say that experience really was what, kind of grounded me with like, hey, this is a business, like, it's mine now.
And I think there was that period in like the 2000s, early 2000s, basically, where like it became about being the biggest flash in the pan. Yeah. It's like, go out there, like no expense is too much to show people that we are the best. Yep. And you had a lot of people who wanted to be restaurateurs who were just rich people who like could like back it,
Yeah.
and it didn't matter if you were making money. It was all about ego and like getting attention.
Yeah, that's that El Bulli, Alinea factor, where they're, I mean, there were a few chefs, obviously, that could do that type of food. So many people tried to, copy that with, the internet being obviously more,
2007. That's when the iPhone's there and everybody's looking at what everyone else is doing.
Absolutely. Everybody's starting to snap pictures of all their food and, everyone's looking at what, some of these incredible chefs are doing, and they're like, oh, I can do this, I can do that, and not really. There's a lot of flash, not a lot of substance to behind a lot of it.
I mean, it was definitely like a renaissance in the industry across the nation. No matter where you were in the country, you could start to get good food, like West Coast, East Coast quality food, like anywhere in the country, because like you're no longer competing with the person on the other side of Main Street. You're competing with the person on the other side of the country.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. The knowledge to see what people are doing just expanded so quickly. So yeah, we were part of that. Definitely, at Caprice, we tried to do, I thought we did some great food out there, and some of that carried with me to Cava for sure. And it made its way across, the coast, and definitely brought back some of that West Coast vibe, I think, to Portsmouth. And, you can still see kind of the effects of that today, in the city. We were doing the tapas thing. We were doing the small plates thing. I mean, you got now numerous places that do that. Not that we were the first either. There were other places that had done it before us, but I think
definitely on the leading edge of that trend in New Hampshire.
Yeah, we took it to another level, I think, at Cava for sure. And I mean, I had a lot of fun at Cava. I think over the years, it definitely started to wear on me. That kind of intensity. That open kitchen there was a lot to deal with day in and day out. Having
looks cool.
Yeah, looks cool. But 15 years later, you're like, all right, like,
can I just go scream in a walk-in somewhere?
Yeah. So,
what up, Unstoppable restaurant owners and operators? We have to interrupt today's video to let you know that Restaurant Unstoppable and Restaurant Systems Pro, we're taking our relationship to the next level. Beginning in July of 2024, Fred Langley, CEO of Restaurant Systems Pro, is making himself available once a week in Restaurant Unstoppable Network to answer all of your restaurant systems questions, whether it's be profit margins. He will look at your P&L. Bring your P&L. He will take a look at that. He will dissect it. He will help you find your profit, whether that be through budgeting, inventory management, costing recipe cards, labor, checklists, you name it. He is a master of restaurant systems, and he's making himself available to you. Fred Langley and Restaurant Systems Pro started as a consulting firm, and for over 16 years, they've been helping their clients increase their profit by 10% or more. What are you waiting for? Click the link below to join our Facebook group, Restaurant Unstoppable Network.
I mean, and you get there. I don't know. There was always this one quote. Gary Danko said, great chef, San Francisco. And I'm not an exact quote or whatnot, but I just remember him making a statement to the effect of something where every season, every menu he puts out, it becomes more and more challenging to outdo himself every single time, and that pressure to outdo yourself every single menu, and I don't mean to put words in his mouth, but like it was something to that effect that he said, and that always kind of resonated in me. It's like, wow, like every single menu, like every single menu item, you gotta outdo yourself.
When do you
that
think,
pressure is just insane.
When do you think the industry shifted to make it about like the food and not about a space for people to come and rest and restore and be with community and connect? Because that's what this industry was born out of.
Yeah. At
some point, it became about the food.
Right.
And I'm not saying food isn't important, but we've lost sight. Like the food, we're making money selling food, and it has to be good, but we're really making money on the experience that's happening there. So as I'm saying this, like, what's going through your mind?
Yeah. So I guess what's going through my mind right now is actually our first interview back. If you listen to episode 6, we talked quite a bit about this whole idea of like, having the guests come and be comfortable in the space. We like, and even here, like, I don't rush people out of here. Like, this isn't a turn and burn situation. Like I really feel strongly that, yeah, the food is obviously important, but like that's going to bring people back, bring them in. But I really want people to feel comfortable. I want people to come in and feel like they're at home. Like this is an extension of me, you know, and it's an extension of my family, and I want it to be open to the community. I want people to feel comfortable being here.
Yeah.
And that's super important to me.
Yeah.
And that was important at Cava for sure. I definitely take a little bit more of a European approach, you know, to dining in that way, where I even in this American style wood-fired pizza oven that, you know, restaurant that we're in right now, like this is a tavern. Like I want people to sit and enjoy themselves. Like
I think that's the biggest reason. Like I've been kind of pivoting the show. Like I still want to go talk to the big corporations of the world because I think we can learn a lot from them.
Yeah, of course.
But at the end of the day, I feel like what's really here. I mean, if you want to go, no matter what you want to do in the industry, whether that be to scale or to maybe open 5 or 6 restaurants, or maybe you have a local, like tiny corporation or franchise, or you want to get to 100,000 locations, whatever you want to do, right? But at the end of the day, I think that what I'm trying to do here is save Main Street, because I think what you just said there, that this space is an extension of you. Like I think if we have too many corporations in the world, right, then we're losing that sense of like soul and humanity in the industry. And I think a big important part of what this industry does is it's creative outlets for people to create space, that to create this extension of who I am. And I think we need that, because that is the soul that gets injected into the space that makes it the community, the experience, the connectivity of that space sticky.
Yeah.
You know,
the connection is the key, and I think connecting, you know, community together. You know, you can see it at the bar, you can see it at the tables in here. You can see people are coming here, they're connecting with one another. People that necessarily wouldn't connect otherwise, and you know, obviously, you know, there's so many, you know, get into all the politics and society nowadays, but like, you know, there's just so much, you know, going on out there, and,
right?
And you know, to be able to have a place where you can connect with your neighbor,
have conversation,
and meet and hang out and see one another, get out from behind, you know, your screen, your iPhone, whatever it is, and actually just be a part of society. I think it's just vital.
Well, I think also for like just like collective mental, like community mental health and individual mental health. Like you said earlier, like the thing that you love about the business today is making people happy, is bringing people together, seeing them and making them happy. But you like that being seen for like and being valued for creating a space and bringing people together is so good for your mental health.
Yep. And
to have a unique space that's unique to this community, that's not another Applebee's, you know, is good for the identity of this community to have our spot. Like we don't focus enough on that.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important that we preserve that. But anyway, I digress. Back to your story. So in 2008, you have a partner, John. How did you know John?
So John and I went to high school together.
Another Exeter boy, huh?
Another Exeter boy.
Do you know that I'm from Exeter? Or from East Kingston?
You're from East Kingston?
Yeah.
Okay. No, I didn't. I didn't really realize that. Nice.
Yeah,
All
cool.
right. Yeah. So no, John and I went to Exeter. He was, you know, a year behind me, so he graduated. And then he started doing things, you know, in the restaurant business as well. We had worked together in a small restaurant in Hampton, the Beach House, for some time, and it was just one of those things where we, you know, had stayed in touch past high school and had always, you know, talked about doing something together. You know, he was kind of more front of the house. I was definitely, obviously, more the chef, and it worked out to be a good partnership. Certainly in the beginning, and it was definitely something that we, you know, had planned and talked about for quite a bit.
Got it. So what were the challenges of opening your first restaurant?
Oh man, wow. Well, the fact that we had no idea what we were doing, you know, besides the basic knowledge that we had, you know, coming up in other restaurants, you know, but actually owning and being responsible for everything was huge. I mean, that was just a massive learning experience and challenge. You know, both John and I think, are hard workers. You know, we put our heads down, we try to solve problems and tried to accomplish, you know, things, you know, and just, you know, perseverance, just in just grit. You know, certainly in those first few years, you know, it became easier over time. Obviously, you gain more experience. Just like anything, experience is just key. So the challenges were numerous, I would say.
The space was a Craigslist.
Yep.
This was in 2008, so you're in the heat of the recession. Yep. So did you get a deal on the space?
It started out it seemingly as a deal. Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think for downtown Portsmouth, I look at what people are paying now and what's going on down there in 2008. It looked like a good opportunity. We had to do a lot of the tenant, build out, which added, substantial amount of, debt in the very beginning. Looking back, I probably would have attempted to negotiate, some of that a little bit differently.
How would you have negotiated it differently?
Well, for instance, the ventilation systems, things that you put into your building, that the landlord ultimately owns.
Yeah.
And of course, our
tenant
landlord, tenant improvements, things like that. I would have, I think there was more room for negotiation there than we initially had put on. Now, we had a great landlord. He was very particular about the building, took very, very good care of it. Ultimately, I have really no regrets with any of that. We were able to, get back above, the debt line, and we did very well for numerous years there.
If you could go back and negotiate, is there like a rule of thumb in terms of how to negotiate tenant improvements that we can take that now that you wish you knew then?
Yeah, I think recognizing, what you're putting into the space, what you can take with you, and so one of the things that, over the years, I've gathered a group of mentors, I
actually met you during one of your mentor sessions when I was talking to Chef Evan Mallet.
Okay.
And then you were there and he said you should interview Gregg.
Yeah.
And that's how I got you on the show.
There you go.
Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, no, of course. And Chef Evan, he's definitely one of my mentors. He is one of the smartest guys you'll ever meet.
So smart.
Yeah, I just love Evan.
So you have this group of mentors.
Group of mentors, and over the years, you sit and you talk with these people. One of the things that I learned, is one woman, incredibly brilliant businesswoman. We were talking about, basically exit strategies, and she was just like, I don't do anything without an exit strategy first. So I won't start any business. I need to know how I'm getting out before I get in.
Yeah.
And that was one thing, at Cava, I didn't take into an account or to a factor, and I think with your tenant negotiation, like your exit strategy has to be there. You're starting this business. It's super exciting, but how are you getting out of it?
Yeah.
You're going to do this until the day you die. Like, what is the end game?
Right.
So, and even with this here, like, is there an end game? Like, do we have an end game for this? And what's the plan? So, ultimately, like, knowing, all right, well, if I'm putting this sink in, if I'm putting this ventilation system in, this walk-in in, these things, these permanent fixtures into the building, they become the landlords, ultimately. So how we negotiate that out is kind of key, and is there room for negotiation? Is your landlord, or are you getting a good value in your rent, and there really isn't room to negotiate?
Right.
So
if it's fixed to the building, if you can't take it out with you when you leave, then you shouldn't pay for it. Is basically the rule of thumb that I've heard. Like hood systems, sinks, plumbing, electricity, anything like that. That is making the value of the space. If you're increasing the value of the space by improving those things, then that's on.
Yeah, it should be the landlord. I think there are certain things like we have a floor in here, and do we like the floor? Or is that something that are we satisfied with it, or do we need to change it? Ultimately, I can live with the floor. Replacing that floor becomes the landlord's.
It's a goal, 5-year goal. When we're putting away 5% of profit every year to invest in assets, make things better, right?
Yep. So it's just something that you have to be okay with, I think, and you have to take a look at where you want to put your money, and what you're all right with and what you're not all right with.
Yeah. So when you're negotiating, so I think I want to make sure I have the core of what you shared. So when you're going in and talking about tenant improvements, you need to negotiate your exit. was that a separate piece of advice, or how is that tied to, like, basically if you put the money into the assets, when you leave, or is he going to compensate you for those assets?
Yeah. And I think that's basically what I was trying to get at. It's like, your exit strategy, right? How we're walking out of, say the lease, or, what are you taking with you? What's being left behind? What are you willing to put into the space, for tenant improvements, and what's happening.
So sorry, did I cut you short?
Yeah, no, it's fine.
So was there a number you had in your head when you were going into Cava? Like, this is how much money we're going to need to get started?
Yeah. I mean, I had written a full business plan.
Pro forma?
Yeah. For it. Ultimately we knew that, we were going to have to put some of these improvements into the building. It definitely exceeded, what we initially thought.
Ballpark?
I think we were around $250,000.
Okay.
For that, total build out and total, startup cost.
Still pretty reasonable.
Yeah. And it was for being downtown Portsmouth. I mean, nowadays, I don't think you could, you probably couldn't even open up a sandwich shop for that right now,
right.
In downtown Portsmouth. It's insane down there. But,
right.
I mean, so Oddfellows was significantly less than that. I mean, we were coming into basically a turnkey situation, where we were able to, buy the furniture and, buy, a lot of the refrigeration equipment, at a fraction of, what the actual, like, original sticker price would have been. So, at the end of the day, the investment here was significantly less than Cava for sure.
So you said you were able to pay it back.
Yep.
How long did it take you to pay off your debt?
At Cava, it was about 10 years.
10 years.
Yep.
And you were open for 15 years?
Well, it's still open now.
Open now.
Yeah,
Got
still
it.
open now. So, I was there for 15. So
okay. So, how did you grow during this time at Cava? Like, how did the business evolve? What were your biggest lessons? Like, what were the pivots, the adaptations you made in that time that had the biggest impact on that business?
Yeah, man. Well, a lot of small changes. Changing up, the way we seat people, the way our menu structure was, going from, more of a, tapas menu to more of a tasting menu, developing, definitely different strategies for,
the changing economy.
Yeah, the changing economy, exactly.
Consumer trends.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah. So, I mean, all of that stuff factored in, for sure. I mean, Portsmouth, we really started to adapt to, the seasons in Portsmouth, closing down for a time period in January, instead of trying to stay open during those really slow winter months. It really made a difference.
To stop the bleeding.
Yeah. And Cava was one of those, or is one of those places. It's a special occasion, spot. January is it's just a tough month, in downtown Portsmouth.
Did you have a best year there?
My favorite year there was probably 2018, 2019.
10 years in?
Yeah.
What was going on then?
I think the food I was really happy with where the food was at. I was really happy with, the kitchen and how we were producing food. I was really happy with the staff that I had.
Prefix?
It was a mix of prefix and then a la carte.
Got it.
But, I just was really, really happy with where, we were at. Everybody, we had just ironed out a lot of the wrinkles at that point. The food was just flowing. And
what were the biggest wrinkles that you had to iron out?
Oh man, wow! Just every last little thing. Yeah, just everything from the flow of like service to the recipes to, getting, who's washing dishes on a regular basis, when are the J1 students coming and,
So you had 10 years of data, of flow, of inhale, exhale, predictability.
Yep.
Like you're kind of learning the space more and more.
Yep.
Was there a best financial year at Cava?
Yeah, that was probably somewhere in that mid 2015, 16, 17, somewhere in that area. I have to look back at the numbers, but yeah, it was somewhere kind of in the middle.
What were you doing then at that time that was working, and why did it wane, do you think, over time?
Yeah, I don't know if it was just the general economy out there. Portsmouth was seeing more traffic. Portsmouth has gone through such a transition. I mean, obviously, anyone that's been down there over the last 10 years, it's
a different city.
Oh, it's crazy.
Yeah.
So, even in, the last few years, all the hotels going up, the rate at which they're charging to stay down there, has evolved and changed. And, for better or worse, I mean, man, it's just a different place.
It's a beautiful city. And it's crazy to think that, like, 30 years ago, it was like a kind of known as like a sailor city where like it was like rough and tough. It was a tough spot to go. It was like a biker city.
Yeah, even in 2000, the late 90s, it was so different. More artsy. More music, more artists, more. It just had a different feel to it, and now it is completely changed. For better or worse, it's definitely it's one of those things. That progress is not. Not slowing down there for sure.
Yeah.
So, I think ultimately Cava, we did really well, like in that kind of, 2012, 2018, 19. Obviously everything changed in 2020.
Right.
With COVID. We did not, do anything close to what we would normally do in 2020. That was just a wild time.
Did you open this space here in 2020?
Yeah, so we had opened up Oddfellows on March 3rd, March 4th of 2020. So we did a couple soft openings.
So you were no longer at Cava at this point?
So I was doing both.
Okay.
Yeah, doing both, going back and forth. And that was the plan, was to have a manager and a chef here and have people running Oddfellows.
Yeah, more of a fixed menu that you don't need to be there creating a new menu every week or how often you did it.
Exactly. Yeah, when we had people in place to do that, and we were all excited that I was going to be the chef still at Cava. I had a schedule down there. We were 7 days a week. I was basically working Monday through Friday at Cava, and I was going to a couple of those days were just during, the daytime, and I'd leave in the afternoon. So my plan was to come here, be here at night, and have a manager in the kitchen here, and, have this place be kind of sustainable. And, obviously we got 10 days in, and by Sunday, I think it was like the 13th or 14th of March, it was just everything changed.
Yeah. So where was Cava when did this come on your radar, this space?
So it was kind of a wild coincidence where I was asked to do some churros from Cava for a wedding that's up the road at the Red Barn and at the golf course at the Links.
Beautiful venue.
Oh, incredible venue, right? And they do a phenomenal business. They do a phenomenal wedding business up there. And this couple had come. I think they're probably from Portsmouth, and they love the churros. So they asked me to do a big platter of churros for their wedding. So I had dropped it off, and I was coming back on, maybe like a Monday or something like that to pick up the platter that I had dropped off to this wedding. And I'm walking through the building trying to find somebody, and I stumble upon the office, and I poke my head in, and, in there, sitting the owners of the place. And so we started chatting and real quickly. And I just
the owners of the Red Door, or
the Red Barn, and they own this building as well. So we just started chatting, and kind of we're talking about the people that were in this space and the restaurant prior, and we're talking about I just kind of threw out like, oh man, like this place could be just so phenomenal, like and this is what I would do.
How do you you lived in South Berwick,
yeah, so
you're familiar with the space.
Yeah, so we've lived in South Berwick since 2014. So I was familiar with the space. Didn't really come here at all. With the other restaurant that was here, and it was just kind of a rough restaurant. So yeah, I said to him, man, like if it was me, I would open this up to the community and really just whatever, kind of throw out my ideas. And at that point, they were like, well, it's up for lease if you're interested. And
that was when?
That was in the early fall of 2019.
Okay.
So probably like early October.
Got it.
And
you were in here by March.
I was in here. Well, yeah, we took over the lease at the end of November.
Okay.
And we spent about 2 months cleaning the restaurant. Yeah, it was pretty gross. So we cleaned and we cleaned and we cleaned and we cleaned and we painted and clean more, and it took a long time to get this. Not a lot's changed, but a lot's been cleaned.
Can you share any of the details of that transition? I mean, I feel like this is, again, like the details of the business side of things. So
Sure.
like, what was appealing about the space? Why was it a good deal for you? Why did you go for it?
So, we live right down the street. I'm 5 minutes away. That proximity was one of the big, draws for me. I wanted to be close to home. I love the idea of doing something in town here. Where we live, we know, my wife and I know a lot of people. We're super involved in the community. At the time I was running the youth baseball program here in town. She was the president of the elementary school PTO. We just had a network of people,
Yes.
network.
Roots.
Yeah, exactly. And we're like, wow, this is a great opportunity to have something that would be sustainable, in our hometown, right down the street from the house, and we knew we wanted to do something American style, something a lot simpler than Cava.
Doesn't get more American than this spot.
No, it really,
It's a
yeah,
tavern.
it's
You got
really,
moose all over the walls.
Oh, for sure.
Maine buoys I'm looking at.
Yeah, the old beams and
Oh, man, the
it's
brick.
just tons of character. So, it was just like, this place could be so exciting and so vibrant, and I knew it had the potential, and just, we knew we had the community support, or we thought we knew we had the community support behind us, and turns out we definitely did. And as we got into it, it was just like, people were so excited that we were doing this, and ultimately, we opened up in the beginning of March to a line of people just down the block.
Wow.
In the first, 10 days of service it was so intense. It was so intense. And everything just died on a drop of a drop of a dime. As soon as COVID, that Sunday.
This is not a COVID friendly establishment.
Oh, it was wild. So,
and you didn't get any of that PPP, or did you? Because
So-
this was an existing business that you took over.
it was challenging. We did eventually. It was really, but we had no sales to go on from the prior year because we had just opened.
But
So-
it was you took over the lease of an existing business. Did
Yeah.
you purchase the business?
No, we did not purchase the business.
Okay.
So that
This is the kind of detail I'm looking to get.
Yeah, the old owner wanted to retain his rights to the business, so I just took over the lease, and then I
Okay.
bought his equipment.
Bought his equipment, maintained the brand in terms of it was the Oddfellows Tavern before.
So we created that brand, and the Oddfellows is a fraternal organization, so you can't own that brand. That's their thing, so we're Oddfellows Maine LLC.
Okay.
Oddfellows Tavern. So that it's kind of like Cava. Like, you can't own Cava. Cava's a thing. Cava's actual. You can't own.
What is Cava?
Cava's Spanish sparkling wine.
Okay.
So it's kind of like champagne.
Yeah. Well, there's also Cava. Did that hurt you when Cava's quick, fast, casual concept came out?
That did hurt us, yeah.
Yeah.
And people in Boston, because we were huge in Boston, people would come up from the city and they thought that that's what we were doing in Boston, and we had no affiliation with that group.
Oh.
So there are other.
You opened a second Cava?
No, we did not.
Wait, so people, you said you were huge in Boston, meaning people would come up from Boston.
People would come up from Boston just to come and eat at Cava in Portsmouth.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. So
And they thought that you were affiliated.
with the Cava in Boston.
Which is
yeah.
frustrating because you were around first, weren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So same thing. And we get that here. There's an Oddfellows brewery in Nashua, which is a great place.
There's also an Oddfellows in Columbus, Ohio. I don't know if you knew that.
Yeah, and there's the Oddfellows fraternal organization, which there's Oddfellows halls all over the place.
Yeah.
So and we have no affiliation with that group other than the fact that the business is in an old Oddfellows hall.
That's cool.
So it's what makes this building so special.
So the business the prior owner
Yep.
owned Oddfellows.
No, they owned a different brand.
What was the name of the brand here before?
So it was called Isidore's on
Oh,
the Rocks.
okay.
Yep. And that owner retained that,
So you just kind of, there was already the Oddfellows like labeling on the building because of what it was in the past.
So this building is known as the Oddfellows Block. And
Got it.
yeah, if you look at the front of the building, it said, Oddfellows Block, in big letters on the front of the building. And So I was just like, all right, well, the name's basically already there.
Right.
And
Signage done.
Done, check. And it was, this is what this building's already known for. So, trying to create that brand of,
and also pay homage to the work that they, so get more,
Exactly.
You started to get into it. Like, what is Oddfellows? What were they doing?
So, fraternal organization, kind of like the Masons, is basically about community, helping, your local brother or sister in the community, providing services and things for people that have less than you, and in the 1800s, 1700s.
Tell me that's not what the restaurant industry is all about.
Right, exactly.
That's perfect.
So it's phenomenal. So it worked out, but in the 1800s, this was considered odd. It was considered not normal. So that's how people got their name, Oddfellows, because they were trying to help their community.
What year was you said like
this building was built in the early 1800s.
Okay.
By Sarah Orne Jewett's father. So Sarah Orne Jewett is kind of our local celebrity author, I guess, across the street. And there's this beautiful white historic home in town, and her father built this building to house the first Oddfellows group in Maine.
I wonder what was going on in the early 18th century or the 19th century where it was odd to give.
Yeah.
Was it a time of like extreme wealth and poverty? I wonder.
I think it's just, people just weren't accustomed to giving to others when they didn't have a lot themselves, and it just makes it, all that more, kind of relevant, I guess, now to offer a place of community.
Well, I know in the early 18th or the early 19th century, I should say 1800s, that was like the peak of the industrial age.
Yep.
So like there was money.
Yep.
But I think that was also probably where the rich were getting richer.
Yep.
And like they were providing a lot of jobs, but maybe not a lot of like great jobs. Like the living quality for like the mill worker wasn't that best. The best. Wasn't it around this time that like unions were formed?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, exactly. So the haves and have-nots. So we just kind of were trying to play off of all of that and try to keep, I guess this space kind of relevant, to what it has historically been used for, and it's kind of part of this community already. So
So turnkey operation.
Yep.
Everything in the kitchen that was here before you kept. You didn't add anything or take anything away?
We did bring in new equipment, yeah, for sure. I mean, there's definitely some new improvements.
The oven was here, right?
The pizza oven was here, yeah. The pizza oven is something that they weren't using really much of at Isidore's, maybe the first few years. By the time that we got into it, I made a commitment, that I want to be known for pizza. Like I want to make a great wood-fired pizza. And in that kind of drive, I didn't really realize what that was going to take. One, you got to have a great firewood guy, and I got the best. That firewood guy is
I heard him at 6 o'clock this morning.
Yeah,
he dropped the load right next to my camper.
Yeah, right. So I've got a guy, and he's been our firewood guy since day one, and we go through 18, 20 cords a year of hardwood. It's a lot of firewood. But it is extremely important. So we built the business around that. And luckily, again with COVID, we're open for 10 days, and then all of a sudden, what do? So we went straight to go, and thank God for pizza.
Yeah.
Thank God for pizza.
Yeah, that's good. What are the challenges associated with firewood, using live fire to cook?
Well, it's got to be dry. Yeah. So it's a constant rotation of.
So you're just constantly bringing fresh wood in.
Yeah. So again, having that connection with my my firewood guy, which if you had told me that was going to be my most important purveyor, I would have been like, wow, all right. But he is, it's so key to being able to maintain that oven. Yeah.
So he drops it off every day or every other day?
No, so we go through like a pile that was dropped off today. It'll take us probably about a month or a couple weeks to go
Hopefully
through.
I wasn't in the way for him to drop it off.
No, you're fine.
Okay,
you're
good.
fine.
I was worried about that. I was like, oh, crap.
They're pretty talented with those trailers. So they'll get it into a tight spot, and so yeah, we've got enough out back for a couple months, but then what we'll do is, we'll bring in even more once that gets stacked, and then we'll just keep a rotation on it all.
Okay.
So it's dry.
You cover it up.
I like to leave it uncovered so that it gets, the air and the wind can get at it.
In the winter, you don't have to worry so much about wetness as much as because it's frozen.
Yeah, if I find that it's going to be a really wet day or like we're going to get a big snow, like I will cover it, and then I don't have it sitting on it all winter long. But for the most part, I leave it wide open.
So you have to have dry wood. What are the other challenges associated?
Just moving it. I mean, it's literally a game of picking it up, putting it down, moving it, picking it up, putting it down, moving it. I mean, it's dirty. It's it creates dust. I would say the wood oven on a whole just adds. There's smoke, there's dust. It's we got to have good ventilation. We got to keep it clean. It's a beast.
It's a project.
Yeah.
And I think the other variable too is like and correct me if I'm wrong. Like you can't just throw somebody on the oven and say make the pizzas. No. You have to teach them how to manage a fire.
Yeah,
which is a lost art.
it is. Managing the fire. You got to be comfortable with sticking your arm inside of an oven that's 800 degrees. And pulling out stuff. It is definitely not
maintaining
the temperature. You got to be you got to be on it. The pizzas cook in 2-3 minutes tops. When we're at the right temperature. It is not for the faint of heart. It's probably one of the hardest cooking jobs I've ever had. Probably one of the most frustrating, and my wife can attest to how many times I've gotten frustrated or angry.
And this is coming. You've done prefix. You've done what's the word? Tapas. You've done a la carte, and the pizza oven. Is the challenge.
Oh yeah, between all the fine dining, and I mean all that stuff is structured, and you've got with the tasting menus, exactly what you're doing, and it's very, it's very organized. This is so raw and so organic and so just
primal.
Oh yeah, for sure. And part of that is just so much fun. But part of it is just such a challenge.
Yeah.
But there is nothing more satisfying than when that pizza comes
100%.
out and it's like gorgeous.
Yeah,
you're like,
for sure.
Yeah.
I think it's important. I think everybody says like, oh, wood oven's the only way to go. And I think that there are benefits to it for sure.
Yep.
From ambiance to the smell when you walk in. It creates a lot of I think it is very primal. I think that we humans are like drawn to that. It's a part of our evolution. It's why we are the way we are. Without it, we wouldn't be what we are today. So there's like a draw there.
Yeah. So I would say real quick, the one thing that I have learned, right? So we're 5 years in now here. I think we're going to close for most of July this next year because it gets so hot in here.
Oh.
We can't even we can't operate the oven.
Yeah.
A lot of our regulars just stay away in July.
Well, most people are in it's vacation land. They're on lakes
and they're gone. So our season is completely opposite than the typical seacoast. New Hampshire, Maine.
You should go buy like a little food truck on the Winnipesaukee, but Sebago.
Yeah, exactly. So our season is so opposite. Our busiest month is March. So July. It can be 100 degrees inside the restaurant because that oven just cannot.
Right.
There's just no way to ventilate it enough.
Yeah, I think
control that heat.
What I was working towards, what I was alluding to, is just like you can't just turn the gas on and have some teenager take the pizzas out when they're done. You really got to have a skilled worker on that oven.
Absolutely.
Also, what are the costs relative to a gas oven?
So, I mean, you got to pay for the wood, right?
So how much would you say a month that you're spending on wood?
Yeah. So, we're paying $250 for a cord, which is a great price. A lot of places are, $350, $400 right now for dry wood.
All of his customers are going, what the hell?
Yeah, exactly. Right. And everyone asks me, well, where do you get your firewood? Can you get me some? And unfortunately he doesn't,
You're a consistent client.
Yeah. They don't. Yeah. I think.
So how many cords a month are you saying?
I'd say it's between 1.5. I mean, it can burn depending on what, if we've got a mixture of ash or we've got, we've got some oak or hickory. It just all depends on how dense that wood is, how dry it is, how fast it goes up.
So it's about another $400 approximately, a little less a month.
Yep.
Operational expense.
It definitely adds to the expense for sure.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that's one other thing so it's more cost, and you have to have, I think, maybe your labor cost is going up because you need to have a skilled worker that's
definitely
doing that. So I think those are just variables to consider, but there are the pros to everything that we talked about before.
Absolutely.
So back to the space. When you moved into the space, turnkey, you did a lot of cleaning. Any other things about this space? Like, how much did you have to come up with money? Do you have to raise money to take this over, or was it pretty much just kind of move right in?
Yeah, no, we took a small business loan.
Okay.
So we went in, we applied, went to the bank that we were working with, and we got a small loan.
What did you need the money for at that time? Like, where was it needed?
Yeah, so it was just various equipment. New pizza station, a couple new refrigerators, things of that nature. Obviously, some operating money. We needed to bring in liquor and bring in computer systems, POS.
How much did you budget out for that? All in? Do you mind me asking what the loan was for?
No, I think ultimately I think we were around 70,000 or so. For
relatively low cost to get started.
I mean, super easy to manage. I mean, that was definitely like for what it is.
You had a good business line of credit because you had a Cava, right? You paid off that debt.
Yep. Bank was easy to work with. I mean, just they needed plans, few numbers, and they were working with us. And at the time, it was relatively easy to get those small business loans. For even for a restaurant. So, and based on the history that we had, obviously we had, 15,
Did you come in under that 70?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yep. So we've done fine just, over these last few years, just chipping away at it, and just, it's a manageable repayment plan. So, we're able to keep, operating and keep the cash flow. This business it's so much about cash flow,
right?
As the money comes in and money goes out, and obviously you're trying to keep it in the positive. Right.
So is this basically a fresh coat of paint? Yep. Some new appliances. Why refrigerators? Why did you replace the refrigerators?
He had been open for 7 years here. Most of it wasn't really taken care of well. Yeah. Just like anything, you take care of stuff. You clean it. You do the general, monthly maintenances on them, cleaning out, the compressor area and whatnot. Those things last a long time. But if you
wasn't doing it.
Yeah, you don't do that stuff. It just doesn't
Never
hold.
buy used refrigerators.
Yeah. It's not.
A good. Buy used shelving, used chairs.
What up, Unstoppable restaurant owners and operators? We have to interrupt today's video to let you know that Restaurant Unstoppable and Restaurant Systems Pro, we're taking our relationship to the next level. Beginning in July of 2024, Fred Langley, CEO of Restaurant Systems Pro, is making himself available once a week in Restaurant Unstoppable Network to answer all of your restaurant systems questions, whether it's the profit margins. He will look at your P&L. Bring your P&L. He will take a look at that. He will dissect it. He will help you find your profit, whether that be through budgeting, inventory management, costing recipe cards, labor, checklist, you name it. He is a master on restaurant systems, and he's making himself available to you. Fred Langley and Restaurant Systems Pro started as a consulting firm, and for over 16 years, they've been helping their clients increase their profit by 10% or more. What are you waiting for? Click the link below to join our Facebook group, Restaurant Unstoppable Network.
Not use refrigerators.
Yeah, and some of this stuff, we're ready to, potentially make some moves in replacing chairs. And, we've done some tabletops and, in small improvements since, now that the business has gotten rolling. But, our goal really was to try to get going for, a relatively low startup.
Any other elements of this deal that were just super appealing, no brainer for you?
I mean, I think the location, the building itself, the ambiance, just the community, having it be, right next to the home, that being able to try to create, that work-life balance. Like,
right.
My son works here with us. My daughter comes in and works, being able to have, my kids around, and be a part of it was also super appealing.
Yeah.
So, business wise, I think we're doing more than I ever thought we would do here. So I'm very happy with that. Obviously a lot's changed since, 2019 when we were planning this, and we opened in 2020 and everything shifted.
Yeah. But that pizza, that saving grace, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, but of course labor has gone up significantly since COVID.
Right.
And
I want to get into the evolution because it's been almost 5 years now.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's huge. But where was Cava during this time? Like when you told your partner that you wanted to open another restaurant, did that cause any animosity?
Oh yeah, definitely, for
Yeah.
sure. I mean, we had a conversation. We had talked about opening up a second Cava for a long time. After multiple places came, gone, passed. We had sat down, we had a conversation, and John had made it very clear to me that he wanted to do just Cava, and that was what he wanted to do. I wanted more than that. I think there was definitely the reality of me doing something definitely created animosity for sure. John, and he's very happy now doing Cava, and that's where he's at. And I'm happy for him. I think that's good. I think ultimately Cava was, a small 40-seat restaurant. It's great for one owner, and I think it's perfect for John, and I'm very happy for him that he's there doing that and continuing on that brand. And it was something that I was, even in 2020 was, all right, yeah, this is great, but, getting a little burnt out on doing
It's a lot.
Yeah, doing the same paella every single week and doing the same food, over and over again. And, it's just, it's a lot going down into Portsmouth, and, I'm definitely way separated from my family, and
right.
it is what it is.
Was there a partnership agreement in place?
We did. We had one in Greece. Yep.
Did that help out with the transition? What could have been different about the agreement that you think could have? I mean, is this information that's allowed to be shared?
Yeah, I'd probably rather not get into that. But yeah,
I understand. Yeah, I try to push where I can, but I respect privacy.
Yeah,
as well.
I mean,
is there anything you would have done differently in that situation?
I mean, again, I think that planning, that exit strategy, like I was talking about before, knowing how you're getting out before you even get in, and it's one of those things like, it's a new business, you're super excited, but the reality is that someday you're probably not going to be doing this for, until the day you die.
Right.
So how are you getting out? And I think that would be one thing that I would take, with me into any new business, negotiation or plan, as I go forward. And even recently I've been doing some consulting work, and the first thing I like to get into is like, all right, well, we can start this, but there's an end to it, or
right.
What's the end going to look like?
So what I'm curious about is if you're consulting somebody on how to draft an exit strategy, what does that look like?
Well, I think the reality is that you just got to be honest with yourself and honest with the people that you're dealing with, and straightforward. I mean, the more transparent you are, and the less you kind of beat around the bush with like, hey, like the reality is at some point I want to get out of this.
Yeah.
And it's going to look like this. I want to be able to exit by, either selling off my shares or I want to exit, on my own terms, or however those terms need to be. And you need to be able to, see both sides of it. So like both partners, or whatever the partnership looks like, I think, it has to be fair all the way around. It can't be just so one-sided.
If you could draft your dream exit strategy, what things would you consider in it?
I would consider, making sure that, I'm compensated for my time, my creativity. As I'm going forward, it needs to be beneficial to both sides, so whoever's staying, whoever's, they need to be set up properly to be able to continue with the business, and they need to be able to be in a place of success. But then you also need to be able to leave without feeling like there is a lot of animosity, or there is, something that you're, some sort of pressure that you didn't finish. There's, the business you need to be able to wash your hands of it, I guess, is at the end of the day.
Got it.
But that compensation, knowing your value, knowing what you're worth, is super key.
Got it.
And not, settling for less.
Right. I mean, as a chef, that intellectual property, those are your recipes, right? Like there's value to that, right?
Yeah, there is. I mean, I think, there's, how much value I guess it's, how well are the recipes written, how important they are to the brand,
right.
Creating, what brand have you created? And I don't know. I mean, I'm.
So when did you ultimately part ways? When was that? What year is that?
So that was January of, must have been 23, I think.
Okay.
We were I think 23.
It's almost a year. Or a little over, almost 2 years.
It'll be 2 years at the end of this January. Yeah.
When that part of your life was closed, Cava, how was your life different?
A lot more time, for sure. A lot less, stress thinking about, all the little details that were going on there. The pressure just to deal with, everyone from the landlord to the purveyors, to, whatever employee drama was going on, was all lifted. Instead of dealing with two places, you're only dealing with one now. So, it opened up, hours in the morning where I could, have more time. Also created a lot of new pressures though. So it's like, all right, well, now you only have Oddfellows. You only have this one outlet, and yeah, it's, there's some time there, but now what could I be doing at Oddfellows to make Oddfellows better?
Right.
And ultimately just all shifted, instead of being divided between two places, it was all focused on one.
So where had you gotten Oddfellows by January 2023?
It was in a good spot. I was bouncing back and forth between the two restaurants. There was a lot that I wanted to start to improve upon, more structure in the kitchen here. We're kind of refining some of our recipes, making sure that, our costs were, a little bit more in line. It was a little like, obviously your attention's divided between two places. So,
first time multi-unit operator. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And two is a lot, three, it's like, from what I understand, you're forced to start to put more people in place. And at two, I felt I could do everything. And that pressure was a lot, to have to take on. And even now with just the one spot, it's still a lot,
right?
So it's like, wow, like,
So the first year was kind of crazy because, it's hard to get, like, you're 5 years in business, but those first 2 years are a little wonky. You can't really trust the data from those first 2 years.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So, March of 2020 to March of 2021.
Yep.
We're coming out of the pandemic around this time. I think in March of 2021 we're fully open.
Yeah.
Or were you still at half capacity?
I can't remember, to be honest with you. I think
we all try to forget.
Yeah, and ultimately, like, we changed a lot coming out of the pandemic to even this day, where when we first took over the space, those first 10 days pre-pandemic, we had, instead of where we're sitting right now, we have two tables. There used to be three tables here. There used to be another, 15 seats, 16 seats out back in our back dining room. We had more people packed in at our bar. And then all of a sudden we found in those 10 days, I mean, it was just, we were so busy. It was so overwhelming with all these seats. And then COVID hit and we're forced to remove the seats. And we're like, all right, well, this is a little bit more manageable. And we kind of were able to work this space slowly back, through, the seating being opened up. And we were realizing, wow, like, we had way too many seats in here to begin with. Like, the kitchen can't sustain, all of these seats. So, ultimately we've gotten back to where we're at now, which is probably, I would say, 15 to 20 seats less than what we originally opened up.
So were you
with.
at 90 seats?
Yeah, it was about 80, about 90,
Okay.
88, 90 seats when we first originally opened. And the kitchen just couldn't keep up with that.
Yeah.
So we've toned it back, learned what we can, put out. And Isidore's, prior to us, they weren't doing pizza. They weren't, having to contend with that wood oven.
They had this oven and they weren't even using it?
No.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, probably because
they tried. They did it in the first, few years, I think, from what I hear. But they weren't using it at the end.
Well, that's the thing. I think when people they try to build a pizza place, or they're like, we need wood oven, and they don't take into any consideration the challenges that come with that. Unless you're like a skilled chef like yourself who has that skill set that you can pass on to somebody. Like, you need an oven mentor.
Oh yeah.
You can't just like have somebody step into that role. Like, you need somebody who knows what they're doing with that.
Oh yeah. And even when we took over, I was like, how are we going to do this? Like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Well, even you didn't have an experience with a brick oven.
And it took a while to get it really refined. I mean, we've got it down now, but I mean, it took a long time to figure out exactly what was going on. And the people that designed it, I don't know who it was, but they didn't do a great job from what I've found. I don't think that the stone is the proper stone in the bottom of it. And, they put the damper way back on the chimney, so it's almost impossible to see. So, Isidore's had issues with smoke, and they never used the damper.
Is there a new oven on the horizon? Maybe
there's
someday?
a new oven on the horizon potentially. Yeah, I mean, again, but that goes back to our very first conversation, or one of our first conversations today, is about the tenant fit outs and how much I'm willing to put into the space. That oven is, I mean, you're talking a huge amount of money. Will that ever be returned? That's going to be a permanent fixture into this space. And
is this space up for ownership in the future? Do you think that's a potential?
Maybe. I don't know.
I don't know much about these owners. Are they?
They're great people.
Younger, older?
They're a few years older than I am. But they're phenomenal people. They own quite a bit in town here. I have a great relationship with them. I don't know if owning the whole building is something that's in the cards, for me necessarily.
It's a pretty great asset.
Yeah, it is for sure. Man, I'd love to give you a tour of upstairs. It just would blow your mind. I mean,
hey, we got time after. I got time after.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Yeah. I mean, this could be an incredible venue.
Yeah.
My goal was to do live music here. Upstairs. I don't know if it's sustainable in South Berwick, but man, it is just. It's a real historic treasure, this building, for sure. So,
I would like to get into kind of the economics. So, in terms of how, what has the cash flow been like? So, I mean, the first 2 years, like I said, was kind of wonky.
Yeah.
You can't really trust that data because you were doing delivery or takeout only, right?
Yep.
Were you doing delivery or just takeout?
No, we chose not to do delivery.
So what was 2021 to 2022 like?
Oh, big change. I mean, obviously, menu prices had to go up a little bit.
Yeah.
Everything's, starting to go up in price. So, we're seeing our sales go up. We're seeing, an increase of people coming back out. Yeah. The cost of goods are going up.
Hard to find people to work. Was that a thing for you or not?
Yes and no. Right. So of course we're outside of Portsmouth. We've got a great, local community. My kids are kind of or my son's at the right age where he's got, every one of his buddies wants a job. So I've got, kids that are 15, 16, 17, I can line them up.
Yeah.
I could have dishwashers for, whatever, for days. I can find a hostess very simple. Servers, I put out an ad for a server or bartender, I'll have 100 responses, in a day or two. It's overwhelming.
That's awesome.
Line cooks, another scenario, little tougher. Like, we were just talking, the pizza oven, that skilled pizza chef, hard to find right now, and definitely a challenge. So that's really where I'm seeing the challenges, as far as staffing goes. Of course, there's been a tremendous shift in just everyone's mentality since COVID.
Right.
Obviously, a big shift in pay since COVID. That has definitely affected the bottom line, what we have to charge for things. And it's just, it's a whole new world these last few years for sure. So, we're adapting to all of that.
Right. So in 2021 to 2022, you're also still managing both. You're the executive chef for 2 restaurants, right?
Correct, yeah.
So you're juggling that. Like, what was that personal growth and challenge like for you?
Just motivation daily to, 1, be creative at Cava, 2, to keep things organized here.
It's a lot.
Yeah, it was definitely a lot. The mentality at Cava, from the cooks to the, having to deal with, a bunch of, kids here, the 16s, 17, even the 15-year-old kids, their knowledge, how much they care. Like, it's not that they don't care, but they just don't know.
Well, you're going from fine dining, passionate career chef to line
here.
Kicks.
Yeah, exactly.
Line kids.
Yeah. And I've been very fortunate. I've got, a great cook who's been with us since, almost since the beginning. He's been just a staple back there for us, and he's a hard worker, great guy. He's got 5 kids at home, so he's trying to find his work-life balance. It's just, it's been a challenge all around. But he's been with us now for quite a while. I've been able to hold on to some other one other cook who actually just left. He had been with me for almost 10 years between Cava and here. So, it it's it's the hardest part of this business right now.
Right.
Are the employees.
Yeah.
And dealing with the employees.
Yeah, it's tough. So 2022 to 2023 is the year that you decided to like. So I'm guessing the conversation between you and John, your partner, was like blooming, like that this was like a thing that was like. How long did that process go from like I want to transition out to being fully out?
Yeah, I mean, I think there was a lot there. We were in a period where we needed to re-sign a lease at Cava. We were at a period where in 2020, our lease was basically coming up. And then there was like a period where we were so unsure of anything even working out because of COVID. Were we going to stay open? Were we just going to shut it down? And just,
So you had this to deal with COVID where you had pizza, but what were you doing there, right? Like, we don't have to get into that, but I'm sure it was much more.
Barely anything. We tried some to-go stuff down there. It was... it just doesn't translate, in my opinion. I really didn't want anything to do with that. We did a few things. We had some of our regulars down there support that. We sold a lot of gift cards, which was very helpful. And people definitely supported Cava in that way. When we reopened, the seating was just so limited that, we just ultimately went to doing a tasting menu that was expensive and, tried to help, cover the cost of being just such a limited seating, seated restaurant.
So with your leases, was it a 5-year lease and then a 10-year lease or a 15-year lease?
So here at Oddfellows, it was 5 plus 2.
But you said you were going through a lease.
So at
Cava.
At Cava, it was, let me see if I can remember this correctly now. It was something like 3 plus 5 plus 3 plus 5.
So you were at the plus 5 coming up.
It was something funky like that. I forget exactly how it broke down, but we were at the point where we needed to renegotiate. And then we were able to negotiate out basically a smaller term, plus then we were going to go for like a longer term. Like the small term had an option for like a much longer term, but we weren't really sure if like we were actually going to stay and we were going to be able to manage Cava. Everything was just so up in the air.
Got it.
Does fine dining even make any sense anymore? Are people going to even come out for this? There was, it just didn't,
The time that you were in business with fine dining from 2008 to 2023, there was such a surge. Like retail was dying. Every developer was throwing money at putting a restaurant in their retail space because that's the only thing that worked. Like the per capita of Portsmouth had more seats in restaurants than citizens in the city. And I think this is like a common theme, because retail is dying. Like there's just more restaurants per capita than ever before. So like every restaurant also is trying to get a James Beard Award. So you have all these these spaces trying to do fine dining, and only 1% of the population can afford to eat like that. So there's like there's an imbalance of what's going on. So like, does fine dining make sense?
Well, and that's exactly where Oddfellows came in, and it was like, nope. And Cava was never supposed to be such a fine dining special occasion restaurant. It only worked out for that 0.5%, 1% of people. Initially, what I wanted Cava to be a drop-in tapas bar. Like I wanted Cava to be a San Sebastian style. Hey, let's go out and get a couple bites. Let's have some fun with friends. Let's have a couple nibbles, couple bites, couple plates. Then we're moving on.
Drink some wine.
Da da da. It could be an everyday experience. Ultimately, that's what this is here at Oddfellows. I get people here 5 days a week. I get people here constantly, over and over.
Ciders on tap over there. You might start.
We
seeing
do. Yeah, we got North Country.
I might just get my camper back there.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's ultimately what we try to do here. We try to create an everyday place for people to be, and this place is, on any given night, I mean, there can be a line out the door. It's great. It's vibrant. It's fun. And that energy just, it really adds to the ambiance of the restaurant.
So how have things changed since 2023? You can't full-time, 2023, almost 2 years now. Take me to that point where like you shed the liability of Cava. That's no longer your responsibility. You're full-time here at Oddfellows?
Yeah. So the weight obviously comes off of Cava, but it obviously goes to, all right, well, now the pressure's on to make Oddfellows, all right, let's really focus on it. So, at the beginning it was, tons of energy. It was like, all right, we're making this happen. And, I think we've ironed out a lot of stuff, here, really efficient now. Our services are very clean and very organized. When we first opened, I just remember describing the situation as like this gritty knife fight. Like, we're getting through service and it's just, oh my God, we're battling to get through service. And every night was just, it was pure chaos, and part of that is, maybe my lack of experience, as a front of the house manager, or just even managing, an American style casual restaurant, for food. But it was just craziness in here, and it just felt like such a struggle. So now, since 2023, we've been able to refine a lot of that and work out, some of those managerial details. I got people, kind of following in line with, the system that, we're creating here a little bit more. Again, the service staff has more experience. My cook Ryan, he's been here for 4 years. He's on board. As the other cooks that have been here for longer, they're getting more experience. They're on board. So it's taken time, and I knew that it wasn't going to happen overnight in the very beginning. And I remember saying that to the opening crew. I'm like, this isn't going to happen. Like, we're not going to be the most well-oiled machine in one day.
Yeah.
It's going to take time for us to find the way this restaurant wants to operate and the way it's going to make the most sense. And it has taken some time to really get it to that efficient point.
Yeah. So what, in terms of customer reviews, what's some of the criticism you're getting?
There's always going to be people that are going to throw out the critiques. I think if, for me, the stuff that sticks out the most is like, hey, this stuff's taken too long. Like, it's taken me, 45 minutes or something like that to get a pizza. And that is definitely a legitimate concern. It's definitely, an issue.
It's another challenge with brick oven, right?
It is. And we can cook 5 to 6 pizzas at a time. Yeah, it is.
So
at the volume that we're
you
doing.
can always stack, like a brick, what do they call those? Block ovens?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
it's tough.
It's tough. I mean, those are the concerns. With this type of food, there's a million substitutions, there's a million changes, and people want it. It's kind of that Burger King. People want it their way, and it's such a departure from doing the fine dining Cava thing where, there were no substitutions. We're not, taking half this dish and bringing it over to half of this other dish and then tweaking it out so we can, now, I mean, you got an allergy or something like that, or, that's another story. But for the most part, there was none of that. There's no these long sections of red on the tape with all these modifications on how to make a cheese pizza.
Right.
And here you got to kind of delve through all that, and you're like, all right, I'm going to modify this hamburger, and I'm going to modify this pizza, and I'm trying to accommodate all of these requests, and that's one huge challenge, I would say, to keeping people happy here. And some of the criticisms is just keeping people happy with the situation.
So since being here full time, have you seen a tick in a direction? Are cost of goods? I mean, cost of goods are on the rise.
Yes.
But I mean, are your efficiencies, costing, purchasing, inventory, those types of things, have they been tweaked to kind of help lower the costs?
Yeah. So I mean, I created a system for myself back, at Cava, even before at the Caprice, but used it really strongly at Cava, where I do. It's a daily basically food cost, daily liquor cost, running basically spreadsheet. And I've kind of created this spreadsheet for myself to kind of watch my food costs, watch my beverage costs on a daily basis. And that, with the more data that I collect, with that, the more I can see the results. I can see my sales through my POS. What
are you using for POS?
We use Toast.
What made you go with Toast?
We went with it at Cava. I liked it at Cava. We've used it here. I like it. I think it's good. I mean, some of the reporting is nice. you know, I think that ultimately there's a lot of glitches. You know, I think there's some stuff that they need to work out, but I think overall it's a good system.
So you're using your spreadsheet in conjunction with the data you're pulling.
Yeah, because ultimately, right? You know, Toast offers like the Magic Chef or something where you can, you know, scan in your invoices, and you know, as long as you've got, you know, your recipes broken down for every last thing, you can get, you know, some of this data, you know, pumped out in their, you know, their reports. But ultimately, right, you the thing that you lack with your POS is you lack all your purchases. So, you know, I take a look at, like, you know, how much I bought fish. I bought from my, you know, one purveyor, purveyor 2, purveyor 3, purveyor 4, you know, okay. So, you know, I've got, you know, all these purchases for my week. And then I look at my food sales, and ultimately, like, you know, I'm not seeing those purchases, you know, reflected on my POS. So I don't really have an idea of like what my food cost is through my POS. Right.
Have you ever thought of like a enterprise solution where you have purchasing built into the software, the back end, like a Restaurant Systems Pro or a Restaurant 365? Are those on your radar?
Yeah, I mean, they haven't been, you know, I mean, again, Toast offers kind of something like that where, you know, you're scanning in that invoice, and, you know, as long as you've built in your recipes and you've built in, I guess you could get some of that out of it. You know, for me, this system, this spreadsheet that I've created, you know, for myself, it's worked out really nicely.
And the benefit of that is just being able to track.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, seeing how much I'm buying from each purveyor, seeing, you know, where, you know, each
are the prices changing, you know, tracking those prices.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I mean, you know, it's crazy unless you're on top of the purveyors, you know, it's like from one week to the next, and you know, it definitely is a key.
What about inventory?
Inventory, we try to run with, you know, obviously enough food to get through the week. I tried not to go too crazy, you know, and have too much more than, you know, what I need on hand for the week.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's easier said than done.
Well, I mean, with a fine dining background, you're usually doing just in time, like like you have fresh ingredients, so you're not over purchasing.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, definitely we're carrying more of an inventory here than I would say we carried at Cava.
Right.
But, you know, it's definitely a key to just the cash flow in general. I think, you know, it's all about, you know, too much of it's tied up in, you know, I don't know, you know, frozen chicken fingers or something. You know, it's like, you know, does it make sense? Or, you know, too many kegs in the walk-in, or too many cases of wine that we're not going to, you know, go through in, you know, the next, you know, couple weeks. You know, it's like, does it make sense?
So since being full-time here, what are the biggest changes, the biggest impacts you've had in terms of moving that needle, the evolutions?
Yeah, I mean, I would say just keeping that food cost, you know, in line for what it is right now, and really trying to watch, you know, the labor, watch, you know, all those variable costs that we can control, you know. I mean, and that's really the key. I mean, the labor is just, man, it's tough right now. Right. You know,
do you know where your prime costs are?
Yeah, I mean, we're sitting, you know, right in that, you know, high 60s, you know, area. I mean, so it's good.
What's your goal?
I'd love to be at 65. Yeah. You know.
Yeah.
But
so where do you think there's room to play, if any?
I think, you know, if we're taking a look at the menu, you know, do we go with menu price increases? You know, I mean, right now we're charging, you know, $10 for our cheese pizza. You know, I mean, we're getting, you know,
I think you can get a little more.
Yeah, and that's the thing, you know, and that's where I've really tried to keep the prices, you know, at a reasonable place. It's been a focus. It's been definitely like, you know, something that we've mentally and physically like put as a priority. Like, can we keep the prices down? You know, can we keep them at a place where people can afford to come out and eat on a regular basis? And it's been, you know, we are getting to the point where we will have to make some menu price increases. You know, as
well, you
the
get your
first
liquor sales, which is huge, right?
It is huge, and and without that, you know, and that, you know, you get people, they come in, they complain, oh, well, you know, the Tito's is this, you know, I can get Tito's in the grocery store. I'm like, yeah, you can get Tito's in the grocery store, but you can't sit at this bar with the Tito's from the grocery store.
And I think that's a big part of what's wrong with the consumer, is they just don't understand what they're paying for. You're not paying for the fucking drink in the burger. You're paying for the fact that you can sit down, not go home, cook and clean, do all the work, but to be in the environment, to have your friends around you. We're doing I want to provide security to my staff. I want to give them insurance if that's something that they need. Opportunity. Like, I think we've conditioned the consumer, and I think it's on the restaurant industry, because for so long we've been giving. It's all about warmth, generosity, transporting people to a false reality. That's what our job is to help you escape your life into this false reality. And I think they just don't know. But that's the kind of baked in. It's our job to make it so they don't know. Right. But it's starting to come back on us now. It's like backfiring.
What are people willing to pay for a hamburger, or what they're willing to pay for a beer, or it's such a tough, you get put in a tough spot sometimes, thinking like, all right, well, if I raise the price of my hamburger, or I raise the price of the beer, or, where's that threshold that, the local community, can pay for. And, in Portsmouth, like, obviously, my pizza could be, $22 probably, and people would be, psyched, and they'd be happy with that. But it's harder here.
I think it's a real fear. But I've also noticed that it's the people that are willing to recognize their worth, to charge what they have to charge, to be the best. And you can't be the best unless you have the resources to be the best. You got to pay the people the best. You have to invest in training. You have to put the money back in. All that stuff comes at a cost, and so it has to come from somewhere. But if you're not turning the nozzle up all the way to get the flow you need, the cash flow you need to put out the fires, then it has to start there, right? So I think we need to be unapologetic with our prices and recognize that if we do that, our fear is that we'll out position ourselves, right? But like, I think at the same time, it's like, how do I be if we're the best, people will pay for it, because they want to be at the best place. Like, there's psychographics there. Like, they want to be where everybody is. They want to be seen there. They'll pay the extra $1 for a burger. They won't even know. But if they're happy, if they're at the spot, but it's hard to be the spot without the resources.
It definitely would be very challenging, to be the spot. If we didn't have the resource. Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that for sure. I mean, I'm at a point here where I think the quality of the product, we're putting out, the consistency that we're putting it out at, definitely warrants, more, from the menu. And I think, we're finding that is definitely, a point where we've got to make a change. And we've got to start to increase some of that.
I think it's baked into our DNA. We're such givers in this industry. We would just want to give, generosity. But the cool thing, I think one of the mindsets that helps to get over that hurdle of positioning yourself out of the market, pricing yourself out of the market, is realizing that the more money that I make with this business, the more I can give, the more I can do, the more opportunity I can give to my employees and for growth. And, we can grow beyond these four walls to create opportunity upstairs in that space, and when you think like that, the more money I make, the more generous I can be. It kind of makes asking what you're worth a little bit easier.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
Anything we haven't discussed up to this point in terms of like where you're at and, things you think you could speak uniquely to, lessons you've learned, parts of your story that are important?
And, I don't know. I feel like every year, every day, just learning more and more. I never profess to know it all. I definitely try to keep an open mind with where, I'm at and where the business is at, and trying to continually progress, obviously staying relevant out there, and, just keeping strong. I mean, it's definitely, it's a day-to-day grind, working hard and being smart about what we're doing. That's really where I'm at these days. I the older I get, the more I realize the less I know, and, just trying to keep it all in perspective, I guess.
Yeah. Where are you headed? What's if you have a vision for your life going forward, like what's your vision for yourself and for the industry?
Oh, wow. Man, where am I headed? My goal, obviously right now, hyper focused on the kids. My son's, looking at college, trying to make that, that happen for him. My daughter will be not far behind. It's a crazy world out there right now.
Right.
The work-life balance, that would be phenomenal to have a little bit more of that, for my family as my kids get older, that time, is just so important to have with them. I'd like to see, my growth out into other businesses, try to expand into other things that,
like what?
Gosh, whether it's a restaurant or, something that's, more passive, some sort of other opportunity. We've been open to so many different little ventures, none of which have really stuck since, leaving Cava. We're kind of waiting for the right thing to come along. I don't know, if I could physically or mentally take on, and going into another, restaurant right this second without, good partnership behind me. So I'm always open to that, if we can find, good partners to work with. I don't think I could physically or maybe even mentally do it all on my own right now.
I don't think honestly, I think there was a time where you could be a solopreneur, like restaurateur, a solo restaurateur. I think it's getting harder and harder. I think there's so many things you have to be. The competition is thicker than ever before. There's more expectation than ever before. Not only do you have to have it going on in the four walls and behind the counter and in front of the counter, but you have to have this digital social presence and this technological presence that is unprecedented. Where and that's constantly evolving. So it's just marketing has become this arm that is just four walls. Marketing used to be enough, and I think at times it can be enough, but if you really want to stay top of mind and having that person who's a marketer, that's a whole nother role that's almost becoming as necessary as a chef. So to stay in your lane and to find partners to go further together, I think if you want to scale and be significant, the partnership is the only way,
right?
I think. I mean, that's the pattern I'm seeing.
Yeah. I would agree. I think it's just so hard to try to take on all those hats, all by yourself. I mean, even just, walking outside of the four walls, the expectation of, the staff that you're here, you're present, you're involved, their expectation has changed, even in the last couple of years,
right.
They want you to be around. They want you to be present. They want you to be involved. I've found that it's definitely, the 20-somethings want to be connected to something. They want to be connected to, something they think matters. And I
think there's a lot of hope there.
Yeah.
For sure. And I think, that what do they call it, Gen Zers?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
I think the pendulum has swung so far in a direction of transaction, and they grew up in this world of media and distractions, and I think that it's kind of like what happened with our food system in the early 20th century, where it all became just streamlined and just garbage. We just started eating shit.
Yeah.
Well, I think we've been consuming shit mentally for the past 15, 20 years, 30 years. And I think that we've gotten to this point where there's something missing, a nutritional, there's substance missing, and that substance is community. And I don't know, I think we're moving in the right direction. I think it's a lot to do with the young people always change things.
Yeah.
They're the ones that adopted the technology, the Instagram, the Facebook, and then that moved to the older folks. But I think it's the next generation of young people that are going to be what's cool now is hanging out in my community, because I know that's what's good for me. I know they're going to be the ones to pull us in that direction. I hope
it's possible for sure. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely, we've got a great, strong community here. I mean, this is a great small town. So it's lended itself to that, right here. You can see it on a daily basis.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. So if there was a change that had to happen in your mind, so the mission statement is to change the world through inspiring, empowering, and transforming the restaurant industry. What change do we have to be conscious about? How do we make conscious change? If you believe in conscious capitalism, where do we need to be conscious?
I think it's how we treat people, how we treat our staff, how we treat our guests, how we're involved again back into the community, how we're just acting in operating, as a business owner. Are you involved? Are you, yeah, there's competition, but there's other competition's good, between the other restaurants in town. Like we want to see, other places pop up. We want to see Main Street vibrant here.
Yes.
A restaurant over there is good for the restaurant over here. You know, how we're working with our town officials, how we're growing South Berwick, maybe, in an appropriate way. How do we improve, everything from traffic to, how do we improve the work-life balance of our dishwasher? Can he afford to go to college? Can he afford to do more than just that? Can we afford to put a pizza on the menu for more than $10? Like, transitioning, from that mindset of, we're here to be, just a business that's operating to a business that's taking part in the community in the town.
What's one thing about your business, a value, a process, a system that makes you truly unstoppable?
I think the fact that we just don't give up. We're working hard. I mean, it's a day-to-day, gritty grind. It's perseverance. We go into it with toxic positivity, and it's kind of funny because that's something that we've been saying, Ryan and I, he's the other cook with me, every day. It's toxic positivity. We've been just kind of trying to reiterate that to the staff, to everybody, that works with us. Like, the glass is always half full. Like, we're always going into the day positive. We're always going to be talking kindly about one another. We're not talking, shit behind each other's backs. We're not talking shit about the customers. We're, not pissed off that, the last ticket is coming in, 2 minutes before we closed. Hey, we're going to make this happen, and we're going to do it to the best of our ability. Yeah. And it's going to be done day in and day out like that. And that mindset, sometimes it's tough, but it's so important just to be positive with and know that we are unstoppable. If we come together as a team.
Perception is reality.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's no question about that. And it's definitely it's just a grind. This business is tough.
So again, if the mission statement is to change the world through inspiring, empowering, and transforming the restaurant industry, I think we're going to achieve that by sharing how one individual at a time has transformed over their career. So how have you personally transformed? How are you a better Gregg today than you were when you got started in this industry?
Oh, man. I like to think I'm, a better person today for sure. I feel like I'm growing as I'm getting older. I'm almost 50 now.
Crazy.
Yeah, it is pretty wild.
I thought you were in your early 30s, late 20s when I first interviewed you, by the way. You aged.
I've aged quite a bit. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. I mean, I try to be a better person. I want to be the best father I can be, best husband I can be. Day to day, those things are tough. That comes first and foremost for me over being the best chef or, restaurant tour, whatnot. I think they go hand in hand though, to a certain extent, but, the priority for me is definitely, family first. Try to tell that to everybody. Family's always first, they'll be around a lot longer than the restaurant will be. Yep. And then, after that, again, it's just try to keep my word, I try to keep, if I tell people I'm going to do something, it's just, that's it's going to happen.
I think you just answered my last question, kind of. So the last question is, if you found out you'd be leaving this world tomorrow, all the memories of you, your work, and your restaurants would be lost with your departure, with the exception of 3 pieces of wisdom you could leave behind for the good of humanity and your legacy. Ooh. What would those 3 pieces of wisdom be? You just said, families first. Yeah. You said a second thing too. Do you remember what it was? I
think family's got to be first. I think, keeping your word, being true to yourself, and be that integrity. Yeah. That kind of responsibility that you have to, the people around you, whether it's your kids or your wife or your partner or, your employees. It's just so, so important to have that moral compass.
And number 3.
Man, I just, want to be known, having kindness, being someone that's positive and kind and being fair and that's really what comes down to it for me.
Yeah. Chef Gregg, thank you, man. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It was awesome to reconnect with you. It's crazy to think it's been 11 years. It's been a fun 11 years, and it's cool to see your journey continue to evolve, and congratulations on this beautiful space, man.
Thank you.
I can't wait to see how this continues to evolve itself. So before we say goodbye, I do want to have you call somebody out. That's how I found you. I mean, I already knew about you, but I think it was... Who specifically said I need to get back?
I think you said Chef Mark Siegel.
Yeah, Mark Siegel mentioned your name. Yep. So who do you respect and admire in the industry, whether that be West Coast, East Coast, here locally, somebody who's running a tight ship, who is treating their people right,
sure,
who's fiscally responsible? When I'm saying these things, like, who comes to mind?
Yeah, so I put some thought into this because I had a feeling you might be asking me this question, and I got to go with my line cook here at the restaurant, Ryan Wilson.
Okay.
Ryan has a phenomenal podcast, which I'd love to plug real quick, which is called You're Gonna Eat That Crust. And Ryan has 5 kids at home. He's an extremely hard worker, great guy. He manages this podcast. He also has a food truck, which he opened up while cooking here at the restaurant. He's been able to manage both the food truck and staying here, his hours and working. So he's now a small business owner, taking that leap from line cook to small business owner on his own. And really that motivation is something that's really impressed me with him. These last few years, watching him grow and take on this new venture with his wife. So, I would suggest talking with someone like Ryan, who's for the most part been a line cook throughout his life, and then now taking this, entrepreneurial venture, going out on his own and trying, something, taking a risk and I've just been really impressed with him.
Yeah. What's his last name?
Wilson. Ryan Wilson.
What's the name of his food truck?
Wander With Me.
And what kind of food are they doing?
He's doing chicken sandwiches and kind of some fried chicken and poutine and things like that. It's fabulous. He does a great job, and he's a great guy. He's got an amazing personality, and I think you'd really enjoy having him on the show.
Ryan, look out. I'm coming after you. I'd love to get you on. And how can we connect with you if we enjoyed today's conversation? If we have questions, maybe follow-up questions, or maybe we just want to come eat here. What's the best way to connect?
Sure. So I am here at Oddfellows, Wednesday through Sunday. Most nights I'm cooking pizza, working that oven, and I'm happy to chat with anybody at any time. You can find me here. I am out there on Instagram. I am probably not as active as I probably should be, but
handles.
What am I, Chef Sessler? I don't even know, to be honest with you. My goodness.
I think I just tagged you in a recent post. Let me see what I got here.
Yeah, of course. And that shows my age, of course. I'm not even as active as I probably should be out there, or as active as many other chefs are. But yeah, Chef Gregg Sessler, or just Gregg Sessler on Instagram is where I'm at. So, not as active on Facebook these days, but
GreggSessler.
That's correct. Yeah.
Oddfellows Tavern.
Yep.
Oddfellows Tavern.
Got
we'll
it.
link to that in the show notes as well. This is episode 1141.
Woo.
Just scroll down. We'll have all those links there. And I just can't say thank you enough for being willing to come back on the show, to share your story, to get vulnerable. I literally can't do what I do without people like you being willing to open up and get vulnerable. I think that's part of the secret to us self-correcting and moving in the right direction.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Well, thank you, Eric. It's crazy being episode 6 to now. It's lots happened, lots changed, and great to see everything that you've done for this show. It's really an incredible evolution here. So happy to be on it, and just
we'll get you back in another 10 years when you have restaurants all over South Berwick.
Yeah, right.
Cheers, Chef.
Sounds good. Cheers.
Thank you.
Yep.